Andrew.
Chris, I'm back.
David just ghosted us today, so
I know.
maybe he'll show up as a surprise guest on his own podcast or whatever.
Maybe he'll pop up.
Yeah. So, what's new, man?
I have been on vacation-ish. I mean, it doesn't feel like vacation because I'm exhausted right now. I got back this morning and I got back from taking my friend to the airport and I got online and my coworker was like, all right, I've got all this Stripe stuff to talk to you. And we talked about it. And then I was reading all this code. And then 15 minutes before this podcast, I got to lay down for a second. And I almost fell asleep. My car clocked at 1,200 miles driven since Sunday. And I've been around.
That's a lot. I can't remember how many miles we did with the Mini Cooper road trips across the country, but St. Louis to Mount Rushmore and down to Palm Springs and then all the way back to Missouri was quite the trip to do over 2 weeks. And yeah, it was probably 8 hours of driving every day for 2 weeks. It was a lot. It was fun though. It was we weren't doing it by ourselves. We were doing it with several hundred other Mini Coopers. That was quite fun. But then you felt very lonely on your drive home. After everybody breaks up, you're like, I don't even have friends driving down the interstate with me anymore. It's just sad.
Yeah. I can drive that far if I have a good book or if I have someone in the car with me to talk to.
Yeah.
And it ended up being both because I got my buddy into Dungeon Crawler Carl. So we basically went through
I've heard
all of book
good
one
things about
and
that.
half of book two.
I have not read that yet, but that's been on my list. I guess we're doing some traveling this month, so I might have to grab the audiobook or something.
The audiobooks are fantastic. I think I liked it so much because the audiobooks were so good.
I love audiobooks over reading physical books almost every time. I don't know what it is about it, but I feel like they're read by the author or whatever. So a lot of times they are able to emphasize the right things as they're reading it a lot better because they're kind of excited about the book they wrote.
Right.
It's good. But yeah, some of them just have amazing voice actors that they hire and whatnot. So
and these books
audio
have
is
an
super fun.
Amazing voice actor.
That's great.
Yeah.
That sells it. I'll probably have to re-up my Kindle subscription and grab a few books and whatever. It's been a while, but
yeah,
the roll out of bed and walk up to my office commute is not very long. And maybe taking the dog out is the longest little breaks I've got here and there. It's not enough. It's just YouTube length of time, but that's it. So looking forward to doing a little bit of traveling and having something to read. So I'll make sure to read that.
Yeah, you definitely should. It's one of those books where you'll get right into it or you won't. And I feel like everyone I've shown it to has been like, dude, this is awesome. I got all ADHD super focused on it because I'm like, dude, all I can think about is this book. I need to keep listening to it. That's all I can think about at night. But yeah, so that was fun. I did Sedona, I did the Grand Canyon, I did some hiking, South Mountain. I went to a Phoenix Suns game. I went to Desert Botanical Gardens. I did some small hikes around Phoenix, got some sushi. I've been all over the place.
Heck yeah. That sounds so nice. We've got our vacation this year is a trip to Greece for a week and a half or something. And I cannot wait to just completely check out and not touch a computer, hopefully, for the entire time. I'm sure I will a little bit. Those are also nice to do too, because we did Disney with family and my wife ends up being the one that all of the questions are asked about. And could you just book the hotels and just tell me where to be and whatever? And she was like, there's nothing enjoyable or relaxing about this vacation because I am doing everything and it's just exhausting. And then we did one to Sicily that was a local chef here in St. Louis organized. And it was a food tour of Sicily. And so we just show up. They had a car pick us up, take us to the hotel. we had a bus every day and a tour guide, and got on this bus in the morning, went somewhere, did something cool, had lunch. They took us to the next hotel. We like get on the bus again, go have dinner somewhere or whatever, and just repeat that for like 9 days. And it was like stopping at wineries, getting tours of wineries, and all kinds of awesome stuff. Truffle hunting one day, that was super fun. So we're basically doing the same thing, but in Greece this time, because it's the same chef that organized the trip. So we knew it was going to be awesome. And it was just going to be like, hey, we wake up, get on the bus, and just enjoy the whole thing. So can't wait. It was
That
a good
sounds
time.
like fun.
Yeah, it's a little pricier than if you were to do it yourself, but like the relaxing, like super low stress vacation, but also get to do some really cool things. We were like, we never take vacations, so we're willing to spend more on this than maybe we normally would if we did a couple of our own smaller trips or something a year. But
One of the
we also just had a baby, and we're like, it will be very nice to get some time to ourselves for 9 days or whatever.
Yeah, I woke up on Monday, and out of like habit, the first thing I did was like check Slack, even though I was on vacation. And I looked to a message from Jamie that was like, I'm delighted that Andrew's finally taking time off work so the rest of us can actually accept on-call cover requests, because it's usually a race between Drew and I to pick up on-call rotations.
Funny. I mean, that's a good thing for that team, but you need your breaks, man.
Yeah, I did. Too bad I don't feel rested.
Just some fun stuff to come back to. There's, let's see, Stripe 19.1, Alpha 5, 19.2, Alpha 1, Alpha Beta 1, Beta 2, Alpha 2, Alpha 3. Did they go back in time? Yeah, that's weird. They went to betas and then they went back to alphas for a couple releases.
It's not a good side.
Stripe Sessions was this week, so you will have some more stuff to rage about, I'm sure, at some point with all the changes to Stripe. It looks like a lot of ad support for things. So hopefully it's not a lot of breaking changes or anything. It doesn't seem like it, but yeah, they had a whole ton of announcements this week, but it was interesting because very little of it was about the core product at all. It was like they added PIX payments, which are great for, I forget what country it was. And
is that Brazil?
I think so. That was what I was going to say, but I wasn't sure.
My coworker is Brazilian, and if that's the one I'm thinking of, it could be a different name, but he was like, yeah, it's kind of our like attempt to get off of relying on Visa and MasterCard. Like the shops support it. Like you can pay for things like online and everything. And I was like, Sounds like a really sick system.
Yeah.
Are you tired of babysitting your job queues? Let us do it for you. JudoScale monitors and autoscales your job queues so you can stop babysitting and get back to coding. We support Sidekiq, SolidQ, GoodJob, and just about every other job backend in Rubyland. And of course, we autoscale your web services too. JudoScale scales up your apps faster than any other autoscaler, so requests, timeouts, and backed up job queues are mitigated before they become a problem. JudoScale has a free plan you can use forever, so there's literally no risk, whether you're on Heroku, AWS, Render, or any other cloud platform. Visit judoscale.com and get your job queues under control.
There's some talk too about like forget what it's called now. There's some sort of like, rather than international money transfers happening through like the Swift network or whatever, they're like people trying to basically get off like US is the dollar currency for a lot of the international bank transfers, and looking at maybe doing crypto stuff or whatever. And there was one really interesting thing. So like everybody who's working on products that use LLMs and trying to be accurate with token usage and actually not getting screwed holding the bag where you mess up the pricing and you're on the hook for all this token usage. Stripe's using this really cool system where like they're using stable coins for it, where it's like crypto pegged to the US dollar's value, but they can do like 0.00005 for this operation on an LLM, and they can actually track it for every single thing that happens. So they have a ton of teeny tiny transactions that get batched up to be like, this cost $1.83, this cost 3 cents, whatever. But it's able to like monitor all that in real time. I think it was called Metronome. I don't know if it's a partner company or whatever that they're working with. They were talking about some cool stuff like that was like actually pretty interesting, considering how complicated trying to keep track of the value of what people are spending through your application's API usage of the LLMs. And I mean, everybody's doing that these days. So it's going to be interesting to see that. Technically, it's subscriptions for Hatchbox, and it's effectively the same issue where it's like, it's a subscription, but we don't get any MRR metrics or anything like that because it's usage based. So they don't give us any like prediction tools, and we would have to build that stuff ourselves. And you have how many servers? What's that going to cost at the end of the month? Well, yeah, it's priced by the hour. So it's weird that they don't have any tools like that, considering I'm sure they have plenty of customers that are doing hosting style pricing, which AWS and all the hosting platforms are charging by the second or the hour or whatever is used. But they seem to kind of just skipped all that and went straight to the LLM stuff, which I guess makes sense because that's the hot thing right now. But they had some LLM that you could use you could ask some questions and it could do some analysis and return graphs of reports or whatever for your account, where you didn't have to go sift through all the CSV exports and crap yourself. But there was some like Stripe checkout studio where you can like design it. They're trying to push Link as like a crypto wallet now too. Not a crypto wallet, but like a wallet for machine payments. So Claude can go say, hey, I would like to go pay for this service. And then Link will ping you and say, hey, do you want to approve Claude buying this thing for you? Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Real curious to see how all that goes in the long run.
I saw an argument that Microsoft was like, yeah, well, we want agents to have their own subscription or whatever. I was like, all right, get over yourself.
I'm sure they will. Does that mean it's of equal, lesser, or more value than a human getting access to this? Maybe it's more valuable. Maybe it's less. I don't know. It's going to get super complicated, and I don't know. I'll have to go through the PageM and update all the VCR cassettes and check all that stuff. But
I thought I'd like escape Stripe at least for like my vacation days, and then my friend that was visiting was like, yeah, like explain to me like what you're working on right now, which then I had to explain Stripe. And then I go to tap to pay at like a few random things that we did around the state. And it was like a Stripe tap to pay. And I had to see the Stripe logo. And I was like, oh, it's following me.
Yeah. It's crazy how much of I don't remember. It was like the Fortune 50. And they listed a bunch of those Dow top, whatever. And how many of them are using Stripe in some way for things. It makes sense because their API is still better than almost everybody else's.
Yeah,
but
true.
Dude, it still annoys the crap out of me how complicated their pricing is, because I would love to offload any tax stuff to them and just use the merchant of record. They literally bought Lemon Squeezy. They took the team and started building the Stripe merchant of record. Lemon Squeezy's pricing is like, whatever, 5% or something. You could go with like Polar and get maybe 4% or something similar. But if you do the math on Stripe, they charge something like, it ends up being something close to like 9%. It's a little hard to calculate because it's like, well, it depends on the payment method. So if it's a credit card, it's 2.9% plus 30 cents plus the 5% or whatever it was for the merchant of record. And it's like, well, wait, that's on top of everything else. And it's the same for Stripe billing. It's like subscriptions. That kind of crap there's not much that happens. It's like basically a cron job that is going to just charge the customer every month and store their card in a vault in a reusable manner, and they're charging 5% or whatever for these things, or, up to, I think the billing stuff's capped at a certain point per invoice or whatever. I don't remember, but it's like impossible for you to really calculate exactly what fees I'm going to be paying. And merchant of record is global or generally available as of this week. And I was looking into it because I was like, it'd be great to just not ever have to worry about that going forward, especially depending on our products, or like the state of Missouri might change their laws or whatever in the future. And they're already talking about changing tax stuff all the time, like every year, and keeping up with it is tough. But like, is it worth 5% of our revenue? No, that's insane. An additional 5%. That's the thing. It's like, you're almost double the company you just acquired. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
You would expect it to be like even more competitive, because then it would be like, let's shut down Lemon Squeezy at some point and then merge it all in or whatever. But no, apparently not.
Well, if you're the only one offering it now.
Yeah. Honeybadger is a performance monitoring and error tracking tool that combines the best monitoring features in one simple interface, with support for all the frameworks you use. It's everything you need to gain real-time insights into the health of your applications. Be sure to bookmark honeybadger.io. That's www.honeybadger.io. Well, Lemon Squeezy still seems to be operating as its own thing still, which I'm sure they don't want to like force all those customers to change their integrations and stuff, because Stripe does not have a lot of those features, because there were some specific stuff about like getting license keys for things and maybe downloads and whatever. So that it was more of a friendlier thing for developers to build a product around. But it also had its weird quirks too. Like Paddle does the same thing as Lemon Squeezy, where you're not allowed to have two customers with the same email address. And that annoys the shit out of me, because it's the feature that I respect the most out of Stripe. Because when I first saw it, I was like, this is stupid. And it was like, why would they let me create duplicate customers with the same email? And it's like, well, you might have multiple products, or you might have one customer with two different teams, and the only thing you've got to identify them is the email address that's unique. And you can't force them to type in two email addresses to create two accounts with separate billing profiles. And I was like, this is genius. No wonder like they did it that way. That makes so much sense. And it's like our developer mindset of, we got to normalize everything and we got to just keep the rules as strict as possible. And they didn't do that. And I thought it was stupid at first, and really came to appreciate that it wasn't that way. But then everybody else did the stupid way too. And it drives me insane. But it's funny how many of those little decisions where you're like, I dream of the perfect world and putting it into stone in my code so that like you can't have exceptions and you reduce the complexity or whatever. And it's like, sometimes just having no rules is actually really freeing for your architecture and design and stuff. But yeah, there's always trade-offs. Yep, it definitely can. But it's funny because I just submitted the PR last week, I think, to, let's see, I have it in my logs here. The new Rails guide that I've been working on for adding product reviews to the e-commerce store has been fun. But I came to realize like the active storage and file uploads and browser form fields are really annoying in very subtle ways. So I can't remember if I talked about this last week, so I might be rehashing this, but there's some new stuff, at least if I did. The reviews, I wanted to have image uploads being optional, but you could choose multiple files and you could say like, we want these photos of our t-shirt, me wearing the t-shirt to show that it was like good quality or whatever. But obviously, like if there's weird pictures being uploaded by certain people, you might need to delete those or whatever. Or somebody like wants to change their review afterwards. They forgot a photo or something. I wanted to have in the admin area, like the ability to edit the review. And I like initially was like, well, let's not let the admins edit the images or the review like the 5-star rating, because it could be a 1-star and you change it to a 5 kind of thing. That seems like something you probably shouldn't do, but also who am I to say? And maybe somebody did make a mistake and like you do need to go adjust it. That should be possible. But the images are one of those things that points out like the browser form quirks that you don't really think about most of the time. So if you have a single image, the file field will just not even submit to the server if you don't select a file, because it's how your form fields work in the browser. If you don't fill out a value, it just doesn't submit it at all to the server. And that's basically what happens with the file field. So if you have a featured image for your blog post and you have a edit form, you like click that edit form submit button, and then it says, oh, there's no image in the form selected, so we won't even send it over. Rails doesn't attempt to do anything, and that's good. When you do multiple is true, I didn't realize this, but I got looking into the source code. When you say multiple is true on any input field, the thing that generates the names, which is like form.field name, it gets passed to that. And then if it has multiple is true, that's how it appends the empty square brackets at the end of the name. Right. And so that file field, when you have multiple is true, does that for the name, but it also looks at that and determines whether or not it should include a hidden field. So it includes a hidden field, but only for multiple select file fields. And then that resets it. So the first thing that I do is upload a couple images and go to edit and just like change some text, but it blows away all the images because I didn't select something, because this time the file field gets ignored, I think, because the hidden field has a value, but then I think the browser skips the file field as it would otherwise. Yeah. But that hidden input is what blows. It assigns a new images array, and then Rails' default, since like Rails 6 or 6.1, will, if you update that attribute, it's going to delete all the existing images and replace them with the new array, which makes sense. That's a good default to have, but very frustrating when you're like, what the hell do I do in my form now? So I ended up where you basically do that first. You still have the regular old multiple is true form field, but then afterwards you have to have a loop of the existing attached files with a div and then a preview of the image because you want to show that it exists. Then you do an hidden input for that, and you set the value to the signed ID, the signed global ID of the image, which is like, it's either the active storage attachment or the blob. I think it's the attachment, but I can't remember off the top of my head there. And then that signed ID will get submitted. So you get all of those, and the browser submits them all with the same name, but then Rack knows how to parse that and then knows the difference between a string and it's like an HTTP uploaded file or whatever that object is for an actual file upload. So it knows to treat those separately. If it's a string, treat it like a global ID and look up the record and preserve it. And then in order to actually remove stuff, so that would let you preserve everything. And then you could add files in the field as well, but you need to be able to also delete those. And so the solution for that I came up with, the simplest option was add a button tag inside of the div for every attached file with an on-click handler that just says remove the parent element, which will include the button, the hidden field, and the preview image. So you don't have a way to like undo that, but it's also nice because just like adding files and removing files, those don't actually persist until you actually hit save. And the benefit of all this is like it all still lives in the one form. You don't have to do like a lot of times people will do actually the file removals on like the show page because they'll put a little X next to the image or something. And you have to manage the images separate in a different view. And I was like, it'd be nice if this is so simple. We should just put it all in one place. When you take those actions on the show page, they would be permanent. They would be immediate. And you would have to like create another nested controller of like review images /1 or 2 or whatever and delete each one of those individually. And I was like, that seems like a lot of extra work. So I was happy to land on that solution. And it's also kind of how it works if you want for the single image, you probably also on the edit want to have like display that there's a current file attached. But the only way to do that is kind of the reverse, so that the field doesn't submit to the server unless you fill one out. So that would actually just replace the image. But there's no way to remove the image in the edit for a single has attached featured image. So in that case, you need a button that says like remove, and it needs to like insert the hidden field with an empty value. But you also have to be careful in that case, because that one needs to go before your file upload field. So it'd have to set it to an empty value before the file field, because you might click the remove button. And if that inserted after the file field and the user then goes and chooses to upload a new file, it would actually ignore the new file that was uploaded, because the next value would be the reset or whatever. Or maybe it does work properly like that. Because I think Rails does ignore that.
Like the underscore destroy?
That works for accepts nested attributes.
Okay.
So if you did do that with your active storage attachments or whatever, you could probably do that as well. That's what you would use typically with like the Cocoon style, like question and answer, creating those dynamically in a single form and managing all that. Because you can pass in the ID for those, and it will know which record to actually update or delete that's already existing. But because you're going through like the has many attached active storage association, I don't know that those are accepts nested attributes. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
And I know DHH in one of the podcasts not that long ago was like, yeah, I regret merging in accepts nested attributes for. I found it useful for some things, but I can totally understand why it's like, yeah, I would rather just have multiple forms or something. And I guess that's a lot easier these days if you have turbo frames. Like you could just use that to kind of accomplish the same thing. Put the new record form.
But you can't have nested forms. See, I've run into that multiple times.
Yeah.
Like you can't have a nested form. So if you want it to be like the third option on like a 6 like input list, then you're going to start running into trouble.
Yeah, that does get tricky. That was one of the ones that I think I learned this from Sean Doyle. It's like the button element can have like a, what was it called? Form action or something like that.
Form method, I think.
Yeah, form method. And it can override the action as well, like the URL. And then it can also tell it which form it actually operates on. Because that was cool when I learned, because I often want a form that has an edit form that has like a delete button in it. And that needs to be submitting a form. And I don't want to use like Rails UJS or any of that stuff. So the solution for that was like render the edit form, but then right afterwards, render a delete form with nothing in it. So it's not visible on the page, but the button for delete could live inside the other form and point to the second form for deleting. And that works really nicely. That was a cool thing to learn. That made a lot of sense. It was like, actually, I don't care where the form lives now. And that makes it way more flexible.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you were forced to like use JavaScript, which I don't want to do. And the JavaScript was just doing kind of the same stuff anyways, just manually. When you clicked with UJS, it would like append at the end of the body a invisible form and then submit that form to do the delete for you. So it was basically doing that already, but you might as well just use the HTML attribute the way it's intended to. And I'm sure it was designed exactly for that use case and purpose. So that was a good thing to learn. But I feel like there's sometimes like you learn the Rails way to do it, and then you never actually need to learn exactly the functionality the browser provides. So probably the biggest thing that Hotwire's done is like force people to learn, oh, my errors in my controller should render not a 200 okay if they actually returned an error to the user. We should just actually give the browser an error message like a 422. And all of that stuff I feel like has been really valuable for people to take advantage of browser stuff or whatever. But yeah, that was kind of my solution for all that, which the funny part about all this was like, this is the Rails scaffolds generate file fields. If you say this model, like profile has many images or whatever, image : attachments in your migration or your model generator. But the scaffold edit form, of course, doesn't persist any of that stuff when you do the multiple images. And it's been fine for the single image because you're just replacing the existing one. The only downside is you don't have a way to delete it. And that's kind of like, okay to me, honestly. It's not that big of a deal. But as it turns out, that issue, if you get blame, who is at fault here for updating the scaffolds to add the active storage support? It was me 7 years ago. And I didn't do a proper job, I feel like, there of making sure the edit forms in the scaffolds supported being able to add and remove images. You have to re-upload all the files all the time, every time you edit a record. And I was like, that definitely feels like a bug, and I'm going to make a PR to fix that. So I have that queued up. I think I just need to pretty much make a PR and submit that. But I was like, well, this is embarrassing. Fixing issues that I made 7 years ago. Nobody seems to have complained about it, though, so it can't be that big of a problem. But still, I was like, it could be a good use case to have example code in the scaffolds that show people how this stuff works. So I think that'll be a nice improvement. Hopefully they will merge, but I feel like activity has been a little slow on reviewing PRs and Rails for a while.
I'm trying to look at our code because we have the ability, because I ran into this actually recently. We have the ability for, if you have a single image, to hit the X button, it disappears from the form, but it's not persisted yet. And then when you save, it removes the image by purging the attachments.
Yeah.
I think we might have wired some of that up manually so that when the input value is remove, it knows to destroy it.
Yeah. There was another example that I was talking to Colin about with this. Oh, I wanted the ability to undo, right? It would be nice if you hit remove and then just kind of gray it out or something so that, or write pending removal or something like that. So people know it's not actually happened immediately. Because right now I'm just deleting the div from the DOM and the image disappears. But if you refresh the page, it didn't persist, which is a good thing. That's what I want. Ideally, in a production use case, it would be hide the image or something and then, or display visually some way that it's pending deletion and then have an undo button to put it back in the regular state. That I think would be ideal usability wise, but
Seems
it's a
little bit of overkill.
It is probably, but if you're Twitter size or Facebook size or something, you would want to do that for accessibility and whatnot. Obviously, you could just refresh the page if it was clear that it wasn't persisted until you hit save. But so many of those pull the avatar out into its separate form on your profile, edit profile page. And then it's an independent thing that its operations are immediate. But if you do any of the other changing your name, you have to click the save button in the form. And it's always kind of felt weird to me that they're separate and one thing happens immediately and the others don't. But it's just mostly getting around the quirks of the browser and the pain of uploading files and all that. But yeah, there was another option I was thinking of that would be simple enough where maybe if you hit, so for the single one or something, I forget what exactly I was going to do, but I was we could remove the name attribute on the field or something so that it doesn't actually submit. That was an option where we could just keep the input without having to regenerate it and add it to the DOM again. I either rename the name attribute to something else or whatever, but then that way the browser wouldn't submit it because it didn't have a name or a value, or you could do a bunch of different ways to handle that. But that was a fun one. Something that seems so trivial, uploading files on the web, literally every application needs it in many places, and then it's still a pain. It's still a pain.
I did find it. We have a custom concern that if the attachment params has underscore destroy in it, we basically like find all blank attachments and we find all attachments that have the underscore destroy in them. And then we destroy those. We like purge them.
Are you passing the ID in for them as well somehow, or?
No, we're just passing the param name.
But how do you know which image to destroy? Is
so I'm like trying to read this on the fly.
It's magic, actually.
So you need like a few different like methods in your controller for this to work. The custom purge attachments. So you call it's an array of symbols. Yeah, okay. So if you have like an attachment named avatar and the avatar comes in with the value of destroy.
Okay, for like a single attachment.
Yes,
that
not
makes
for
sense.
Multiple.
That makes a lot of sense for that. If it was multiple, then it's like you need the ID as well.
Right. No, but this is for single attachments.
That one makes total sense. I understand.
Although it does have find all.
Find all for
like attachments find all, and if it equals the attachment params is destroy for that. But it is still for a single attachment, I think.
Interesting. That was another thing that I wanted to cover was like, so far, like the intro tutorial talks about active storage because we need to upload like an image for the product. So like a t-shirt or shoes or whatever is my examples. But the index page for the products on the store, we don't have any images. We just render the names. We leave that up to you to do. But in this case, I was like, we're going to display all the reviews and the images for those reviews we should preload. So that was the first time. And it makes sense to like add this stuff later because doing too much of that at the very beginning and trying to make the index page perfect, it's like overwhelming in that tutorial. But this was a good point to be like, well, you're going to load like 50 reviews and then those reviews are going to then each one of them query active storage for the attachments named images. So why don't we call this scope that says with attached images, and voila, now all of those are preloaded and like you can look at the query logs in this request and they are a fraction of what they were. But it's also tough because it's like we made one review, maybe two reviews in the tutorial. And it's like, really, you need to go create a whole bunch of these to see the benefits of it. But at a certain point, you got to draw the line in the tutorials. Otherwise, this will end up a novel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing with that too is like, you can make the server like really fast, but if like you're not doing any optimization on these images, just because the server returned the request, the browser then still has to download all those images, which can lead to it looking like the page isn't loading when in fact, the server's already sent the page back and now it's doing like render blocking lookups for these images.
Yeah, because it's also the first time you generate that page, all of those images you're querying, and then you're just generating a URL to the variant of it's 150 pixels square. And then the browser then is like, okay, we'll make 3 images per 50 reviews. Now we got to make 150 requests to Rails, which may have never rendered some of these images before. So it's got to go generate the variants with libvips, and then it's got to save those variants in the database so that they're faster next time around. And there was several times where I was like doing that flow, testing the fix for adding new images and removing existing ones. And I would like do that and then it would update and then the page would just sit there with 3 broken images and I would refresh. And after a second or so, then all of them had finally generated. And I think some of that was like, I blew away the review record or something, but then it may have had a cache copy of the file or something in the temp storage folder or whatever, and was referencing like the wrong file name there or something too.
That's difficult because like in a production scenario, you should be putting those behind a CDN, so you're not necessarily waiting on your database.
Yeah, but if you are doing active storage and having jobs to generate the variance, then like it still hits you the first time. And then hopefully it just gets all cached in Cloudflare or whatever CDN. But yeah, the first time it's still taxing on your server, or those will run on the worker server. So maybe it's a bit faster and more dedicated to that stuff. But and then Tom Rossi had made the like pre-generated variants. So as you're uploading them, they can be pre-calculated or whatever. So your initial request to those images will actually be ready to go, which is nice. There's a whole swath of things to deal with all this. Yeah. It's crazy.
I was going to say the other thing you can do is, which if you're using Sidekiq, have a separate queue just for that, so that it's not like blocked, like the main jobs aren't necessarily blocking it.
Yeah, that's a really good one to feel like I should do a screencast or something on that, because like you want some of those jobs, different types of jobs, to take priority over others. And it's like even emails themselves, like a notification that your deployment failed is probably medium priority. If it was successful, medium to low priority. But if you were sending an email or something with a login code, that's like super high priority and should run before anything else. And even just having different queues for your different emails and having Sidekiq prioritize those over others is really useful. I know that like, doesn't Nate Berkopec have a good blog post of like, use the expectations of the job speed or something as your queues? Don't give them names of like Hotwire and login emails and whatever else. These should complete, they're like priority 1 or something. They should complete immediately. These like are lower speed ones or don't matter as much or something like that. I'll have to find that blog post or whatever. But
yeah, I've not read that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the inspiration for the kind of system that we kind of use, because we have multiple queues, but we have like a slow queue and it's just kind of like slow running jobs. Like they go there. They don't have to happen right this second. We know it's going to take a few minutes. I think we have a specific queue for emails. Yeah, so we have a bunch of different queues, and I think that's really kind of paid off for us. So it's like the jobs that need to be running that layer, maybe like a Stripe payment, that needs to happen quickly. But like the notification that happened doesn't need to happen quickly. It shouldn't block other things running.
Right. I just Googled this. There is, in the Sidekiq wiki, one of the recommendations is name your queues based on priority or urgency. And he links out to Gusto's blog post. And Nate did a bunch of work with Gusto. And I think this is what he was talking about, wherever that post was. But instead of doing the default, I forget, even for Turbo or mailers or something, they're like the mailers one, I think, is mailers by default.
I think so.
Or whatever. But the example here is like urgent, default, and low are much easier to work with. But then you can take it a step further, and Gusto's approach was like latency-based queue names. So within 30 seconds, within 5 minutes, and so on. That's such a good naming scheme.
That's really smart.
And it, like when you read your jobs and they say queue as within 5 seconds or 30 seconds, that's instant hint of the priority. Because even like urgent, default, and low, what does that really mean? Some jobs will take a lot longer, some will not. So like an export job should be low, but it, to me, would be better if it was like within 30 minutes or within 1 hour, like a really low priority name with the latency style, I think would be even more understandable as you look at it, or come back to code that you haven't seen in a long time that has been working fine until somebody exported 100 gigs or something stupid.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I thought
really like that, because like you're right. It's like, what does slow mean? Does that mean slow as in this doesn't have to happen now, or is slow as in the job is going to take a long time?
Right. Nate has all kinds of posts on this kind of stuff, so just definitely give him a follow. Here's a post from his LinkedIn about SLOs on queues and timeouts and cooldowns or latency and stuff. So Anyways, yeah, that's all I got. There's a bunch of things going on behind the scenes. I'm hoping that we get Brandon Weaver from Ruby Central reached out on Friday and had listened to our episode. And so I think we're going to have them on very soon to talk through all their plans and whatnot. And I think that'll be really nice to hear from them. But it sounds like the future of Ruby Gems is safe and secure. That's not something people need to worry about, which is very good to hear. That was one of the concerns we had. So I'll be very curious if we can get them on soon and hear from them directly and stuff. But sounds encouraging. It sounds like they were thrown into a bit of a crazy thing. I forget when it was, January or something, when they all started. So whenever that was, they had a lot of work to do. And it's been tough. I want to get involved however I can and help, even if we could use the podcast to help spread the word on what's going on behind the scenes or whatever. That would be awesome. But yeah, hopefully we can get them scheduled and hanging out soon. David never arrived.
No, he did.
Oh, did he?
He said Blue Ridge Ruby.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. I've been seeing those posts on Twitter or whatever from people there. Hope they're having a good time.
Yeah, I hope so too.
David will give us his recap when he gets back, I'm sure.
Yep, that'll be perfect. That's one of those conferences that I'm like, I've always wanted to go, and the timing just never works out. But it's like right near where I grew up, and it's like, then I got to go see my mom. And but it's always sounded like a really fun conference to go to.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Lineup was phenomenal, and Asheville area is incredible out there. I love that. North Carolina.
Yeah, it's a cool area.
Blue Ridge Parkway was a fantastic drive.
Yeah, I've done some hikes up there.
Well, I hope that everything went well with the conference and everything. I know Jeremy said he's been posting his like updates of how many hours he's put into organizing the conference, and it's getting up to 250 hours or more at this point. I think it sounded pretty similar to what it was before. Maybe doesn't get any easier every year.
Yeah.
As much as you hope it is, it's still a ton of work. They post their videos or they record the talks. I can't remember.
I don't remember seeing them in the past.
We can always check the good old rubyevents.org for that. Scheduled talks. I guess this is view all Blue Ridge Ruby events 2024. Yeah, there's videos for those. So,
oh, nice.
Hopefully we'll see them soon. I don't know how long it takes to edit those yourself and all that. But anyways, I'm out of here. I got to go do stuff.
I got to go Stripe. And I don't want to either.
Don't look at all the lists of new changes.
I won't. I mean, you told them to me, so I already...
Well, I haven't gone through like the API change log for a little while, so I'm a little nervous to see all those things. But luckily, we've got the old VCR suite, and they're pretty good about not doing a ton of breaking changes, but they've been pushing a lot more lately than they have in the past. So they seem to have changed they changed the whole API like versioning pattern a few months back. So they're much more willing to ship breaking changes, which is probably a good thing, but also, man, it sucks.
Yeah. Well,
keeping up to date with one more thing.
Yeah.
Count me out.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.